Hi everyone, we're ROMbi, and today we're reviewing Amalia Glasse?
I think it's just glass.
Amalia Glasse, and we're reviewing her Shinki version in particular.
She is an archer, and she has, of course, much better stats with her Shinki, and her attack is quite high. Especially since right now she is only equipped with the standard wooden bow, which doesn't really boost your attack by
At all.
anything. And here is her art.
She's also rated an A+ on Famitsu and a 7.0 out of 10 on GameWith.
So that is fairly standard with a lot of the characters that have been released recently. Say, like, Katya was also a 7, and Viper and Ozma were only 6s. At least at the time when we reviewed them. And they're both still quite popular
Relevant.
characters right now. Her leader skill is Battle Ballad, and it will increase the damage dealt by party members.
So basically, she makes a pretty great leader because it doesn't matter what you put on your team, their damage will increase.
So, of course, since she is also a Shinki character, all of her skills say Reborn on them.
Mm-hmm.
So her first action skill is Reborn, Shock Arrow. It will only cost you 18 SP. Of course, she does have a passive that does decrease the amount of SP that you use per skill. Shock Arrow shoots a single arrow, and it has a high chance of doing shock.
And it also does bolt damage.
Yeah. If you had her previous version, her unshinky form, her shock arrow back then didn't have as high of a chance to shock. At least in my experience. I'm not sure if that is just because I haven't used Amalia's first skill in forever, which could be the case, but in my current opinion, I do believe that her shock arrow has a much higher chance of shocking the enemy.
So her second action skill is Reborn, Blast Note, and this time it'll cost 40 SP. And what it does is it creates a shockwave that sweeps away the enemies and increases your attack temporarily. And apparently it also grants Symphony power, which is definitely new.
The new parts of this is that her attack gives you a buff for the attack buff, and it also gives you the Symphony power. So this shockwave is actually a beam. Although it is not controllable, it is a fairly fat
Chubby.
It's
a wide beam.
Wide
basically.
beam.
So Symphony power, we have finally done the research, and what Symphony power does is it's attack, movement speed, damage reduction, and this increases the strength of it increases the higher the level is.
Yes. So all the way up until finale, it will stack on top of each other, and at the finale stage, you will get a 50% increase in attack, 50% increase in movement speed, and a 25% decrease in damage that you take.
And that makes so much more sense now that I understand what Symphony power is, because honestly...
Especially since they never explicitly sort of
explain what Symphony power is. That's what Symphony power does. I believe that everyone's Symphony power stacks like that, so if you use Symphony power, it gives you the first one, then the second one, then the third one, then the fourth one, and then finale.
Of course, there is sort of like the in-between. It's like 1, 1.5, and whatever. Which is why sometimes when you use multiple Symphony power skills at once, you don't see it jump from 1 to 2 immediately. Because there are multiple stages sort of in between there as well.
Interesting.
So her passive skills are attack plus 15%, crit plus 15%, and SP cost minus 20%. They are fairly they're self-explanatory.
They're not anything particularly like, wow, interesting, but they're very good for her, as obviously her attack is now much better, and her crit is much better, which is great for archers, because I feel like archers don't get to attack all that often, because you have to archer charge.
Not really, but generally, archers do seem to do a lot more damage. They're meant to do more criticals than, say, other characters, in my opinion.
In general games, anyway.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and try her out.
Finally, we are in, because I have terrible loading times, which you will not see because we will cut it.
So we're gonna gather a mob like usual.
Well, actually, we don't really need to gather a mob yet, because I will first showcase her first skill. Okay, well, I can't show you shock, because it automatically kills.
Because these guys are not strong enough
to
survive.
But It is a single arrow and it does pierce. So if you are
In line.
somehow able to gather everything in line with a really small arrow size, you can
you just need them
attack.
a straight line.
You can attack multiple, but so they are both straight line attacks. Both of her action skills. So her second action skill
You
is
have a posse.
yes, I do. Her second action skill is the one that's much more interesting. It's quite large of a range. As you can see, the beam does have a very long or wide.
Yeah, it's the entire beam radius and not just the middle beam.
Yeah. So, as you can see, I do have an attack buff and I do have Symphony power. So, my movement speed has increased slightly. And if I do it again, I stacked my Symphony power and now I have Symphony power 2. And of course, this will continuously stack for
And here's Symphony power 3.
whenever finale happens. And yeah. So unfortunately, shock on bosses is not
common.
the best because bosses do have a resist to status effects. But yeah, so her attack is
Look at that
much
damage.
better.
Dude, she is totally on par with like all of our like current archers and stuff. She's nice.
So I
it?
actually used her for our most recent co-op, although it wasn't a very strong co-op. And so I used archer characters just because it was easy to attack everything without having to move.
Lazy. But then anyway, that's Amalia. Wow, dang, I wish I got her when back in the day.
I do want to somehow showcase her shock, but I don't know what mob I can do this on because they are kind of weak.
Yeah, but in any case, if you guys do have Amalia, you can go ahead and test out her shock. It is a little bit better. That's Amalia. I think she's great. I'm really jealous that you have her and I don't have her.
Yeah, so Amalia is a really strong archer. I think her damage output is
really
probably
nice.
better than, say, Katya's, in my personal opinion. Just because Katya's does have a really high damage because of her increased poison thing when you increase her stats by 70% when she's poisoned.
But that's a very circumstantial thing versus Amalia where her attack is just normally high.
And
wow,
also
so
Amalia
good.
does have the attack buff and Symphony power. So if you add both of those together, it's a 100% increase in attack power if you can get the Symphony power to finale.
Right. That's amazing. So if you guys do have Amalia, she's totally worth Shinkying. If you guys don't have Amalia and you have the runes for it, she might be worth rolling for. Yeah, so that's Amalia. Thanks for watching today, and we'll see you next time. Bye!